I've seen certain comments relating to education, and I think I'd like to chime in on this one. I'm a very, very strong believer in the power of education. I think educated people are an immense force for good in the world. Now, someone might say, why should they pay for someone else's education? Well, you never know when that student you're educating might one day be your doctor or your nurse or your teacher, or in my case, the IT professional that might make the apps that are on your phone, or they might be a lawyer that protects you or helps you out if you have some kind of legal trouble, or a politician. I know that might not be the most popular thing, that your MP that helps you out with your difficulties, the police, the teacher that teaches your children, all these possibilities. We need educated people in order to function in society. Education is never a waste of money. Uh, Education is a thing that keeps on giving. Take me, for example. You could take away all my money, all my possessions. I could lose my health, but you cannot take away my education. I will always have that. Short of something going dramatically wrong with my mental health, my education is mine, and my education means that no matter what happens to me, no matter what I lose, I have the skills and the ability to earn it back, to keep on producing. Anyone who's educated has that ability, that they can produce, they can contribute. So, just like Tony Blair said, although I don't claim to be Tony Blair's biggest fan, he did say one thing that I agreed with: education, education, education. And I think that Britain is lagging behind the rest of Europe, where education everywhere else in Europe is still affordable. And this country seems to be going down the path of the American model, where they consider education just to be something available for the wealthy. And I think that that's going to ultimately harm British society, because ladders were available to me. Education wasn't actually free. Tuition fees were already a thing, but I qualified as an independent student to have my tuition fees paid for. But even then, they varied between 1,500 or 1,400, something small anyway when I started. By the end, they'd gone up to 3,000 a year. But either way, my LEA paid for them. And that was helpful to me because I didn't have the financial support of my parents, because my parents weren't hugely well off and they weren't particularly financially supportive of me in my education, so I was working part-time to get my way through. And I think that my story is not that unusual. There are lots of people who want an education who might not have the financial support of their parents that other people take for granted. So yes, I think it's perfectly reasonable for a plumber in Huddersfield to pay for some student's education, not a plumber, whatever else, whatever profession, that we need to educate our young people, we need to skill them up, we need to give them prospects, but not just educate them, we also need to have the jobs available once they are educated, that they're able to have something to go into. And I think a lot of people, particularly the older generation, seems to like to hate on the millennials, like they treat them like they're lazy or that they're spoiled or whatever else. But I think that society has done them a great disservice and failed them in many ways, that many of the things that the older generation took for granted, the ladders available to them to get education and training, have been taken away in the name of cost cutting, and say, oh, it's only fair that they pay for everything themselves. And the thing is, at the time that you are a student, being faced with the prospect of, what is it, £9,000 a year, and it's all going to have to be debt, and then at the point when you're starting your career, you're having to make those debt repayments at a time that you're maybe financially struggling to begin with. It's a big burden that they really don't need to be burdened with. Educated people can contribute back in terms of taxes. I mean, people complain about me with my liberal metropolitan elite London salary, and you think, I'm in the 40% tax bracket, so 40% of everything I'm earning is being paid back into the system, and I'm hoping that at least a decent chunk of that is going to educate the next generation, because I actually like that. I hope it's actually being spent on that. I'd much rather my taxes were being spent on university students than being spent on nuclear missiles, this nuclear deterrent that we'll have to have but never use for reasons because we have to follow America, like America's any glowing example of how to run a country right now. So no, I don't apologise for the idea of a plumber in Huddersfield having to pay for a student's education, because I think too right. You never know all the people whose university education is going to benefit that plumber, the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, all these people with university education that will benefit that plumber and make it worth it.